Welcome to another day trading live session, 19th of March. I'm not going to be in front of the screens today, but just wanted to do a quick overview of the market this morning nonetheless. We're still on the euro dollar futures. For those who may have listened to the session yesterday, which I recorded, we sort of debated this sort of areas of interest above the market as we were going up, and this sort of unfinished business and the potential reverse. Potential reverse happened. Managed to take a little bit of a trade this morning before going because it was very obvious and intense as far as bearish movement. We sort of filled in that low volume node here. That one, well, partly, not all of it. Although it's less important clearly than other parts in here. And then we went to pretty much, went to the day before yesterday, so Monday. We didn't reach the low of that day, and reaching the low of that day would have been, a trade where we could have expected to go down. So now I'm going to do something I don't usually, do, but I'm going to place an order. As I'm not going to be in front of my screens. So I'm going to effectively place an order. And effectively, I'm going to place an order, a limit order this time, which is not something I do very often, but I'm going to place it here at 109,285. And the reason I'm going to be doing that is effectively if we revisit that sort of, let's call it the low of the day, I would expect the market to go down. And again, it's establishing a scenario. I know there's a single print and a TPO value area for the market profile of that Thursday last week, which was again, an important day because of that tail. So that could be 2 points of rejection, but nonetheless, I'm going to take and also this is coincides with Wednesday last week. We've got this low volume node, which was not filled in by Thursday and any other day. So I'm going to go all the way down to 10884. Let's call it 85. So I'm placing a limit order. I'm in at 109.26 and I'm out at 108.85. That's pretty much the gist. We shall see what happens. And if we're taken, we taken, and it works. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It won't, I don't really know which scenario is going to be the scenario for the day. Clearly, we had, as I said, this lower, it's not a low volume node per se, but lower volume here in the middle compared to yesterday. So I sort of, that's a risk to take, shall we say, without being in front of the screen, which is usually not something I necessarily do. But this time I'm going to do it. There we go. So we'll see. I'll pause. I'll resume when I'm back later on today. It's only 8:30 a.m. We shall see if that has worked well. But you can see these two scenarios we established yesterday. There's a low volume node above and below, and that one quite obvious one, and so on. It doesn't seem to be any. We would have fed interest rate decision and the FOMC economic projections at 6 p.m. UK time tonight. So that's going to move the market. Until then, I think it's no harm in trying to see if we can make a little bit of a trade here. I'm not going to do the trade above, but I could do another one at 110.25, which is also a plausible and possible scenario. So, I'm at the same time going to put in a 110 entry. And the 110 entry will exit at 110.14 above. So it's not a huge trade, but it's all possibility, shall we say. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we're where we are. You know, what happens, if anything. It could be just the market is trading sideways because it's a, a Fed rate day. So we shall see. I'll pause and I carry on later on. So a few hours later, 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m., you could see that, we are in the middle of that low volume node, or even more than low volume node here. It's more of a sort of huge tail that we have here. We're sort of stumping a little bit on the TPO single print, sorry, as we're getting on it. And as mentioned before, there's always some form of bounce back on that. But I'm in two trades. I'm in exactly the same trade actually. No, I'm in 109.34, the other one 109.30. Obviously short, and I'm aiming for the whole, being ambitious here. So you're just getting to this single print, and as I said, it can easily bounce on it before it goes back down. So one needs to be patient. But the point being, I'm sort of aiming, once we pass the single print, I'm aiming for, the full, all the way down to 108.86, really. At least that's where and that's where it was this morning, to be honest. My take profit. So it's pretty much it. We'll see what happens. You can see we've got different pushes here, and it's pretty much live. You can see we are on to the single print now. We've passed it, so that's the bounce can be just after we've passed it. By the way, it doesn't have to be on it specifically. Just to be aware. And usually there is this little bounce back, which we can see here if you look at the book. By the way, see. So you get this little bounce back as we get onto the single print. That's what we see here. But it could go back up all the way up, and equally could finish that sort of tail and try to exchange volume in there. But anyway, I'm looking also at the footprint here. So again, target is all the way down to the end of the previous low volume node. As you can see, this bounce back is this is what you see here, the number, pullback number at the bottom of the footprint. That's exactly what it is. So I mean, there are some bias or stops or something, whatever it is, equaling to market orders buying at that sort of level. And on a footprint, it's not very unusual that it's used as a target or used as an exit or take profit, or what the case maybe. It doesn't really matter what it is. The point being, it's here. Okay, you can see here on the right hand side, this last column bar, whatever we want to call it, is actually, that's the pullback bar here, live on each different level. And it is pushing down again, so I'm confident that I'm saying this straight. Again, this is all live. So now we can see that this sort of pullback, we pushed it a bit further down, but this is sort of intensified. And the same with the following bars. And I'm sort of waiting to see what happens. It's stalling now, and it's not surprising. It's close to 6. And we'll have the Fed, the interest rate, apologies, which we pretty much know will be 4.5, so no big surprise. The actual economic projections and press conference at 18:30 UK time, which is more what tends to push the market one side or another. This is just going to go one way and then the other way and then correct that way once the number is confirmed. But at the moment, the market is clearly paused. So I had sort of trailed my short here. So I'm out of both trades because I was trailing them as well as having a target here. And I'll see if it's a good ground to go back down at some point, but I'll probably wait until, 6:30 is not the ideal. I mean, some people trade it, but I find it's a bit of a roller coaster. And more often than not, it's not. You regret doing it. I mean, I always do. But let's see what happens. Let's see if we do, because sometimes you get a big announcement like that, some interest rate or something big, and you do realize that all those areas, all those zones that we highlight, because there are order flow zones, it could go down 2 zones or back up to, nodes of zones. But the point being, they still apply. It's not because it may be very erratic, maybe go back and up and down and sideways and down, but the bottom line is it will still, there will still be some markers for the actual movement and prices. Just one thing as well I want to share here is what we're looking at here are all practical sort of strategy and plan and market mapping and microstructure analysis when you start looking into, looking at the order book, looking at the footprint, market profile, volume profile. I mean, there's no magic in there, okay? And it's not, this is why I'm just sort of pausing and resuming hours later so you can actually see in hopefully a short amount of time the results. And the way I sort of look at it and think and see if that's something you can apply to yourself and use it actually and find it useful, because I see so many things after the fact where people tell you, oh yeah, one short here and long here. And yeah, I mean, after the fact, I look at any chart, go back in history, and everybody's a multi-billionaire. It's easy after the fact. It's much, much harder when you're doing it live. That's when, and yeah, some people will say, hey, there's a swing here. So when I see the swing, then I shorten this. And yeah, okay, fine. I don't believe in, voodoo here or magic. It's, if it works, some people fine, happy for them. But I'm just applying something tangible and a little bit, practical that anybody can use. You need to learn it. You need to look at it. It needs to make sense as well to you if you're going to use that. You need to understand it. You need to look at all different things. And there are many components, to be honest. I'm just showing main parts of it. But, it's little, bits and pieces that you want to take on board. But, it works effectively. And I'm not a huge, I probably make anything depending on how long I trade, and I make anything between 200 and 800 a day, not more than that. I don't claim to make millions, but who cares? That's good for me. So we can see the reaction here clearly. The interest rate announcement. As I said, it's it was what was the forecast, so 4.5. No big surprise. You can see some limit orders being added here in different parts. But effectively, it will, if the true value is down there where we were, it will go back there. If it's, there was some expectation from market to understand where the value is. Here could be confirmation as well, the value of the, could be higher. But that sort of this sort of announcement, quite big, will obviously initiate, a reaction, and then it will correct one way or another, depending on, what is the real perception behind it. So we'll see. At the moment, as I said, I'm sort of waiting to see if there is good ground to go back one way or another. This clearly was, the above area that we drew here. It isn't in this unfinished business that is sorry, but that's just this area we're seeing here. Apologies. And yeah, above there is still unfinished business and some more to do. But clearly, if you look at his profile, we could easily go back up here and fit in all today's sort of crappy volume that we have at the top, which is selling tail. So we'll see. But again, what's going to happen between now and the actual press conference at 6:30 is when it really matters, more than that number, which was affected, even if it has sort of, taken things a little bit above or higher, shall we say. But we'll see. Now, we're within this area, and of course, this area, you could argue that it hasn't been, because of today's profile, you could argue that all of this hasn't been, been filled in, that gap, if you look at it this way, because that gap came from the day before yesterday, was projected forward. Yesterday, we didn't really, go there. We bounced back there. We didn't make it. And today we went through it. And as we went through it, we really didn't, this, again, the low volume node here in the middle of this profile, where we are now, exactly, actually. So we could fill that in and carry on going up, or depending on what's going to happen in the press conference, or revert back. But that's pretty much, pretty much what you can look at and expect throughout the day. And again, as I was saying earlier, this is really something that you can apply. It's not magic. It's not, saying that, oh, if there's a hive, sell at the top of whatever, crap platitude I hear over there. Because, yeah, clearly when it's at the top, you want to sell if you know that it's going to go down, and vice versa. Perfectly understandable. Except when you're here live, that's when it's difficult. After the fact, it's very easy. So, oh, yeah, here, and I would sell, and here I would buy, and here I would sell, and here I would buy. Yeah, sure. But is it going to carry on going down as you're trying to buy at the bottom, or sell at the top, carry on going up? Is it going to stop here, get to the next level, and where is it going to go? Up to what point, and when is the actual moment the move is happening? That's all of this. You when you do it live is the difficult part, and that's why, actually, having looked at many ways to trade initially when I started 15 years ago, I stopped on the order flow because it was giving me those indications of potential areas it could go to. And even if it doesn't go there straight away and go down because it goes up or whatever, it's pretty much to the point, to be honest. And it can be if you draw your zones well and you pay attention to the microstructure and so on, when you, i.e. the volume profile and the TPO, and and perhaps even the footprint, if you want to be very, very granular, you find that, sometimes it's very, very precise, at least as precise as anything else you can possibly think of. So that's why I'm not, I'm started to use it, been using it for certainly, first couple of years you try everything and then you decide, okay, this is what I've tried, this is what works, and that works. So that's why I'm sharing it. And again, it's replicable. It's not hard. It doesn't, you don't need to buy any crazy indicators or subscriptions, or the worst subscription is having Bookmap, or is having, you can buy a lifetime session if you want to license actually for your order book, or for Jigsaw, which I use, is where I execute the orders, or Sierra Chart, which I pay every month, and the data. But this is more, just as you would if you make this a business, you want to make this a business, and you want to make money out of it, and you want to make a living out of it, and you can have the liberty and the freedom to work from anywhere you want, when you want, how you want. And I don't think there are that many jobs that offer that, really, flexibility and freedom. But if this is what you're after, you can make it happen. And it's, relatively cheap if you think about it. Aside from a decent computer, a couple of screens, a good internet connection, some data. I mean, I don't think any business running any other business would cost as little as that. And then the next investment is probably to train yourself, so you understand this, or you understand something that works. Okay, not something that somebody tells you to do, but that you do yourself because you've learned it. And it's the give a man a fish and feed him one day, and and teach him how to fish, and it'll feed him every day. So because you learn yourself and you do it yourself, and you're independent and you take ownership of that. And if you want to add other things, you add other things. It doesn't matter. Whatever works, eventually is the right thing to do. But again, that's all the reasons why I'm trading. This great part of it is passion for the market, and the markets, I would say, is this sort of fighting a little bit between, with higher powers there, higher, more leverage, more money, more, and having who have a completely different agenda than you. But really, this is, so there's some excitement in being able to, a bit like I always compare it to, when you look at a well, as in the sea, and you see little, fish that gravitate around those very, very large fish and eat whatever it doesn't eat, or what it leaves behind, or eat all the crumbs. Because if you make $500 a day or whatever, this is crumbs compared to, what some institutions or very, very large trading outfit probably make. But anyway, I'm sharing this with you because, again, I find this works and the investment in there is fairly minimal. Now, I've shown this in a number of videos, but you can see that down here, in fact, we've got two, but I would say down here we have a large resting order again. And I'm saying again because every day we spot some. And you can see it here quite clearly, 108.55, and it's 900 contracts. There's another one up there, 109.80, 330. So it's not as large, but it's still, if you look at the usual size of the euro-dollar futures, it's quite high. So all things being relative. So if you look at this 108.55, we pretty much, we further done that actually, 108.55, we're all the way down here. This is ambitious, shall we say, because we're all the way down here. And if you look at the profile, that's when it gets interesting as well. And that's not at all the chart I wanted to put out. But if that's when it gets interesting as well. It's like when you look at the actual profile, we can see if this 10855 would, you know, correspond to anything in particular. Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, not to us, and but it will to whoever's placed the order there. And sometimes it will to everyone. Sometimes super obvious. So in that case, I haven't drawn the last week's. I haven't drawn the low volume nodes further down than where we are here, effectively. But we could do that. And by the way, we can. There is a way to project the areas, the sort of low volume nodes. There is a way to project them onto Bookmap. If you want to, you know, look at it live. And really that's what it is. I mean, I don't like when charts are too crowded, but effectively you can overlap pretty much everything you see here under one chart if you wanted to. But anyways, we can see that I haven't been that far. 10855 is going to be just around somewhere here. So it's not anything in particular, per se. But as is the case, you know, all the time, there's clearly some more, you know, low volume nodes and tails to draw, which will serve for future reference. In fact, I can go all the way here with unfinished business and go all the way here. So you see, I'm going back in time here, effectively. So I'm drawing this, including this, including this, including this whole tail and that one, and the unfinished business is in there, plus a single print. So the 1855 is above that, just above that. And again, I don't see anything obvious as to why there's a large limit here. So, but again, the explanation doesn't have to be any of ours. You know, it could be somebody has to exit at that point in time. It could be a take profit. It could be some form of getting out of a trade. It could be anything pretty much. So I'll wrap this up. And let's see what I'll leave it run once we've had in a few minutes we've had the press conference and see where we are, and then I'll try to make this not last over 30 minutes if possible. And another point is you can see that although we know that that jump happened because of it's precisely at a time where the interest rate for the US by the Fed was confirmed, and I'm saying confirmed because the estimated figure was exactly the actual. But you can see that although we had this huge jump up and then a reverse back, you can see that it's still pretty much stopped where we sort of, you know, drew our low volume node from previous sessions. So that's what I meant earlier. Even within what appears to be uncontrolled chaos, it is orderly chaos, if that makes any sense, a lot of the time. And sometimes you can jump several levels up or down, but, you know, nonetheless, it's still something that is happening. And here we can't see it because we're having, you know, this volume fill in here clearly, but it's green on green and it's not an ideal color for that. But you know, we're filling this in little by little. So this time I'll pause and unpause and see where we are. So we've passed this 7:45, 1945. We've passed this sort of economic sort of aspect of things, you know, the press conference of the Fed and so on. It went up and down, and you know, and I think the truth is, we'll see what happens yesterday. We still have this big limit here. And anyway, I think we'll call it a day. Hope you found this useful. If you've got any comments, any questions, please don't hesitate. But well, let's see what tomorrow looks like. Thanks a lot. See you later.